This is episode 46 of the Marshall Street Podcast. You're listening to the Marshall Street Podcast, the home of music industry know-how that will give you the skills to take your career to the next level. Here are your hosts, Bennett Ferguson and Stu Watts. What's up, everyone?
Welcome.
This is another episode of the Marshall Street Podcast.
It is episode 46.
And this one's called Prioritising What's Important.
Yep.
Now, this is a really important podcast.
It is.
We're going to be touching on why prioritising things is important, what happens when you don't prioritise things, ways that you can go about prioritising, and then how to reflect on whether it's been a successful organisation of your time.
Yep.
First of all, what's been happening this week?
This week, slightly shortened week. We had Easter long weekend, then came back in. We've got some field trips coming up, so we had to do some prep for that.
Yep.
And a few more Music Academy episodes have gone out. We had a double podcast week this week.
Double podcast week, yeah.
Which was good.
For the viewer, it'll be 1 week after the other, but, you know.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
But
we were sneaky like that, but yeah, that's about it.
That's it. So let's get into this episode.
Let's kick on. Nice. So to start off with, when it comes to prioritising, a lot of young artists and musicians, when they're first starting off their journey into the creation of all of their music and that sort of thing, can kind of get a bit lost. I think what tends to happen is they don't think about planning things out. They don't think about organising their time very well. And a result of that is them putting a lot of time towards things that don't necessarily help them that much or, in fact, send them the other way. You actually spend a lot of time wasting time and, you end up with a year or so gone past and you could have done so much more.
Yep. And not only that, like it could come through in terms of when you have a release, the release doesn't go as well as you thought. All because there are those little tasks along the way that need to be done that they're so important. But if they're not prioritized, if you don't have lists, if you're not aware of everything that needs to be done, it's easy for them not to get done. And music's the sort of thing where everyone really is their own boss, so no one's going to tell you to do them.
Yeah.
So if they don't get done, all that happens is you don't see the results from your release or whatever it is. You're the one that ends up wearing the the ramifications of it.
Yeah, and when you're, first starting out, you don't think of your music as a business. You think of it as fun, you think of it, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to the point where you want to start to take things seriously, you want to really, get things going and get more people on board, get more people knowing who you are.
You just need some structure.
Every little thing, every little job that needs doing, you need to know when that is going to happen, what needs to come first, what needs to come second, third, fourth. And then you'll be a little bit more successful each time as you do things. So really, what are kind of the main things do you think that musos tend to spend their time on that maybe they should be having more awareness of other things?
I think the big one is the ratio of time spent on music, on the song, compared to time spent on everything else.
Yeah.
Bios, photography, videos, release campaigns, getting articles and placements in blogs and networking, meeting other people in the scene, all the other little things that aren't just creating your song, seems to me that the ratio just isn't always as it should be. Which, is fine. You need to have a great song. Your song needs to be as tight and as good as possible. But as we've said before, like having a killer song is really just the entry point. Like everything else, a good release campaign, getting awareness around you and your artist, all of that is secondary. Your song's got to be good. So that's kind of that. It needs to be at a good level for everything else to work. But you just, like we've seen it, bands come in and they spend like 2 or 3 months talking about a part of the bridge and how that transitions into something when it's like, let's just take a step back and look at the big scheme of things. Like this is one song of a project that's going to get released over months and months. That's got all these release campaigns and music videos and all these other moving parts. And you're spending all this time on that little bit.
Yeah, that 10-second part of a song.
Which no one's really going to notice. Like in the big scheme of the track, like if that's make or break for the song, something else is wrong.
Yeah.
So I think it's the ratio, which is fine. Like if you've got all that time and, you're in a position where you can dedicate a lot of time to your music, 100% dedicate a lot of time to the song, but also make sure you're dedicating the right amount of time to everything else that goes involved to it.
Well, this is true. This is the thing. If you are a musician that has a team on board and allows you to focus on your craft, your songwriting, your performance, all of those things, then this can kind of go a little bit to the side. But even
the reason,
still,
I'll jump in there. The reason it can go to the side, that's only for you personally. That's
Correct.
your personal time that gets prioritized
Yep.
when the bigger picture is the whole team is looking after your artistic
Yes.
career. So in the big scheme of things, in the macro outlook of it, the ratio is still there.
it is.
There's
And
still the
if
time
you
spent.
are your team, if your band is your team,
Yep.
you don't have a manager, you don't have all these different people, you're making your own video clips,
Yep.
you're recording your own music,
Yep.
then this is why this is so
100%.
important. So I guess let's kind of talk about all the different things that you need to be able to list out first. I think that's a first starting point for people that
Yep.
are listening to this and they're like, well, how do I do it then?
Yep.
The first point is writing it all out.
Yep. Get whether that's a document, a sheet, spreadsheets, Excel sheets, whatever you're comfortable working with.
Yep.
And list everything down that needs to be done around a release.
Get
We'll just
super
use
micro.
releases
Get
because it's
super,
music.
super.
Bios. Be
Yep.
like, cool, I need a fresh bio for this release. Put bio there. How long is that going to take? Can you do it? Do you need to outsource it to someone? Is that going to cost you money for someone to write the copy for you? Step one. Next one, photography. Do you have clean press shots done, an EPK or like a press release? If
Yep.
you're writing the press release, you're going to need to have some clean and relevant photos in it. Are they new? Do you need to get a photographer? Do you know how to use a camera? Do you have a camera yourself? Or again, is this something that's going to be outsourced and is going to cost money?
Just on that, if you're in a band and you're not taking photos every single day or every single time you're together as a band, you need to be.
Every time you're together as a band, these days, camera phones and what iPhones and smartphones can do is so much better than
Yep.
what it was 10 years ago.
Yep.
So anytime you're in rehearsals, whenever you're playing a show, pull out the phone and just take some stuff. Go, hey guys, we need some more photos. Let's
Yep.
put it here.
Get someone who runs the practice
Yep.
studio. Hey, do you mind taking a photo of us?
Perfect.
Awesome. Anyway, continue.
And then press release. So, if you've got a release coming out, you're going to need a press release. To obviously send out to service to people about your tracks.
Yep.
Are you going to be the one writing it? Again, do you need someone to write the copy? Is that going to be done in-house or outsourced? That should be on the list. So all of a sudden, without even thinking about the music, now we've got bios, pictures,
Yeah.
a press release. Is there going to be a music video?
Yep.
If there's a music video, are you doing the treatment? Are you shooting it yourself? Are you editing? Are you in charge of the wardrobe, the set, everything like that? Is that all coming from you? And if so, that's its own list. That is its own document that has all of these things in it that you need to make sure go smoothly on the day. Because guess what? When you're dealing with videographers and photographers, these are creatives as well. They need direction. They're going to need to make sure, hey guys, look, we're not running on time. Let's get this. You need to make sure what are the priorities of that film clip. So if you get to 2 hours before the end of shooting and you've got all this stuff left to shoot, you in your head know what the most important is and what you can work with to make sure you're still going to get a semi-decent result.
Yep. And this is the thing, like we're talking about this in the span of 3 or 4 minutes, and look how many things that we've come up with. When you're in a band and you're sitting out, you need to get this micro. You need to think of every single little job that needs doing, have them all mapped out. Like you said, write how long each task is going to take, who needs to do it,
Yep.
whether you need to outsource, who's contacting that person.
Yep.
Every little job that needs doing is just a little piece of that puzzle
Yep.
that overall leads to these
a better result.
A better result.
And you'll notice we still haven't touched on the music yet.
Yep.
So then getting back to a release, let's say you're going to have a launch show, or whether it's a single or a project. Who's organising that? Who's booking the gig? Who's liaising with the venue manager or the booker? Who's doing front of house sound? Is each band having their own sound guy? Who's booking the support acts? Do you have banners? Is there house tunes? All of those things that make a live show run successful are now in your court. Yep. So you need to know, one, what you're doing, organising the run sheet. All of those things, again, a whole nother kettle of fish that has to be taken care of.
Not to mention tours.
That's just an extension.
That's like that times 10.
Yep. Well, for every show, plus logistics and travel, and then artwork for the show. So now you've got to get a show poster. Who's designing that? Are you doing the design? Does that correlate with your album artwork or the single or project artwork? who's doing the artwork. Like you're putting the song out, it needs artwork to go up to distributors, and then putting songs out to distributors. Are you the one literally sending it to the aggregators?
Do you have a label?
Do you have a label doing that? Who's organizing split sheets? All of these things are so crucial, and we see it time and time again that bands spend out of 10, 8 out of 10 units of their time are spent on the song, on the creation of the music, and they allocate 2 out of 10 of their time units.
Or they just forget to do them.
And they don't get done.
Yeah, they just don't get done.
And what happens is you don't see the results from your release that you would.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks after your song's dropped, you're sitting there with that little disappointed feeling that, oh man, I thought it was going to be better.
Yep.
Because there was all these little things that didn't get done, these little 1-2%ers along the way that just give that impact when it drops.
And I guess to zoom out again, if you're thinking about, I mean, the things that I don't want to get negative, but you do regularly see a lot of bands and artists whinging about not getting paid the right amount and this and that. And it's like, well, have you spent the time organizing your merch desk to look really nice at a gig? Have you got everything labeled really nicely? Have you entered all of your songs into APRA so that when you play live, you can get paid?
Yep.
So many people that don't know that is a thing.
Yep.
That when you play live, you will get paid for playing your own song.
Yep.
Like straight, there's nothing. All you have to do is put your gig into APRA. That's it.
Play the show that you were going to play anyway, and then you get more money coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And so these are just little things, again, that just add to the overall picture of you being a more successful band.
Yep.
So once you've done all that, once you've written out all of the different tasks, we just listed them all, not all of them,
but a heap. A very good start.
And you know, once you've listed them all out, these are things that you're going to do over a span of time. Don't think that this is all going to get done on one day. It's just not. This is over the span of months.
Yeah.
Like, and so once you've written them all out and figured out how long each thing's going to take, put them in order of when things need to get done. Mm-hmm. Does the photo shoot need to happen before the gig? Yes. Does the photo shoot need to happen before you, have your single release? Yes. Like all of these organization of the different little tasks, you can now see them because you've got them all written out for you. Even if it helps to put them on individual bits of paper
and move them around.
Or magnets or something like that,
100%.
move them all around.
And that's such a good little brain hack is to, instead of trying to think in your head, like, all right, I've got this launch, I'm going to have photos, instead of trying to piece it together mentally, write it down. And when you're visually looking at the words that you've written, that will get you 80% of the way there.
Yep.
That will tell you roughly the priority list of when things have to be done.
Yep.
Now, once you know when they have to be done by, now you can start prioritizing your more micro schedule in terms of when you're actually going to do them.
Yep.
Like if you know you're a morning person and you always get up at 6 and you don't have to leave for work till 8 and you're usually just fluffing around the house and you have breakfast, but you're usually pretty active, dedicate 30 minutes, 45 minutes of laptop time, computer time, admin time. This is when you can, all right, let's register all my songs with APRA. All right, let me go send off some emails to venues and let's see if I can book in a gig.
Yep.
Let me send some emails to support bands and see if I can start locking in them.
Graphic designers, whatever.
All of those little
be.
things that you're like, man, I know I'm not going to be in a creative state of mind in the morning, so there's no point in me picking up the guitar and trying to songwrite, but I can still allocate that time to something that needs to get done.
Yep.
And then if you know that you've got your band rehearsals in the evening, then you've already prioritized that time. So that's when the music is going to keep ticking over.
And this is the thing, like you listing out all of these different tasks, yes, it looks overwhelming, but think about that, half an hour, 45 minutes at the start of every day, and you're ticking off these little things that need to get done eventually anyway that you should not forget about. All of a sudden, you've done 10 of those tasks in 1 week.
Yep.
Whereas if you didn't do this prioritizing, if you didn't write all your tasks out, if you didn't list them out, put them in priority lists, you would have seen that, oh man, this is going to take forever.
Yep. Now you've got 2-3 hours of hectic admin that's going to drain you and it's going to leave you mentally lethargic. And it could have been avoided by doing 30 minutes in the morning when you're up anyway.
Tick one of the things off. Yep.
30 minutes each day, Monday to Friday, that's 2.5 hours that you found without allocating a 2.5 hour block, without putting too much on your mental plate.
Yep. Absolutely. And so then obviously once you've put them into a priority list, then you need to figure out who's doing it, right?
Yep.
We've already written it out, so that's easy for us.
Yep.
Now we can put them into different lists of, okay, this is the person. Whether that be someone in the band or someone outside of the band, you literally can just go, okay, person A needs to do this, this, and this. They need to contact this person. They need to organize this gig. They need to write this song, whatever it might be. Then you've got individual lists for each person. Then it's not one person doing everything.
Yep.
You know, and then that leaves that stress out of the band room as well, because without doing these things and without talking about it, without planning it, you go into band practices. I've been there. This is why I know I've been there. I've been there heaps of times where you go into a band practice, no one's done anything, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, fuck, we got to do all of this. Oh, man. And then someone blows up because they're stressed.
Because it didn't get
and the
done.
other person just wants to play music and doesn't give a shit about anything like that.
And especially, it's highlighted even more in bands because, you know, you're working with a dynamic of 3, 4, 5, 6 people. And there's usually a leader. There's usually a captain of the band who's kind of, you know, somewhat running things, the admin side of things anyway. And if it's all left up to them, they're going to end up feeling overwhelmed and underappreciated. But it might be their job too. Cool. They're the ones who can write out this list. Like, hey guys, I'm going to come to you as a band. We've got this show coming up. We need to get the venue. We need to get support acts. We need to make an event on Facebook. We need to make an event on Oztix. We need to get tickets going. All of these things. Now I can then go, cool. Hey Stu, I need you to set up the event on Facebook and Oztix and make sure that that's available.
And that'll literally take that one person 10 minutes.
And they don't have to think about how it fits into the bigger ecosystem of everything because that's been done. You've done this through the sheet. You just need to know your job. Hey man, in the next 48 hours, jump on Facebook, create an event, and just make sure it's up on Oztix.
By the way, I love that. Like, you talking about there being a band captain, that's another thing. If you haven't, like, talked about this as a band, had this communication, had this who's doing what conversation before, you know, you get into the nitty-gritty of recording an album, for example, blah, 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 whatever it might be, playing gigs. If you don't have a band captain, or if you don't have someone that can take charge and that everyone else in the band understands that is the person that does that, this is another thing that's going to alleviate so many misunderstandings, miscommunications, frustrations, arguments, potentially someone leaving the band. I'm serious. Like, this shit happens all the time.
100%.
If you haven't had that conversation about, okay, who is doing what? And it might be one person writing out this list, like you said. It might be the group. But if you haven't had that conversation, that organization can't take place in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and like same with music. Like, there's usually someone in the band who usually leads the way with the musical direction, who usually comes with a lot of parts written. They're usually pretty good. They understand the music. And not all the times, but mostly it's someone else who's good at the admin side, who's good at the document side, who's good at the making sure things run smoothly. And then it's just identifying that, being like, hey man, cool. This is the role and it's not strictly, hey dude, this is the role you're loosely going to play. You know, we're dealing with 5 people. We're dealing with 5 different schedules. We need you to just lead and make sure that the framework is there for us all to do our part.
Yep, absolutely. And then we've done all the parts from the prioritizing now. We know who's doing the tasks. We know how long it's going to take. We know when we're doing it. All of these things are ticking along. And then what comes next is figuring out, did it work?
Yeah, that's it. So once, say you go through this process, say it's your first release as an artist or a band, and you're like, all right, let's take this seriously. Let's really kind of put everything into it because we want to get something out of it. Let's start these docs, all right? Let's go through. These are all the things that we need to do. We need to have new clean shots done. We got to have bios. We got to have Spotify updated. All of these things. We've now got a great list. We're now executing. We've got the single show coming up, single drops. You play the show 2 or 3 weeks after. You're like, all right, cool. It did pretty well. We've got another release coming up because we don't want to lose momentum. So we're already planning for our next release in 2 months. What you need to now do is go back and reflect on that list. Is the hierarchy that we listed them, was that accurate? You know, in this, we said that, you know, the cover art was the most important thing. Now that we've come to the end of the release and we look back and, you know, the music video wasn't quite how we thought it was because we didn't allocate enough time to it and we didn't really promo the gig much because we put it at a low priority. Is there any room to adjust it when we do it next time? Like, were we right, or is there room to move?
How long did everything take?
Yeah.
Did the times that you guessed or estimated Was that accurate?
Yep.
Did it take shorter than what you thought it would? Did it take a lot longer than what you thought it would?
Budget-wise, did
budget.
your music video completely blow the budget because you thought you could get a killer music video for $500, or did you have reasonable expectations about it all? All of these things, and looking back on what you did previously, and then using that to set up your next release, will just mean there's no guarantees in this industry. There's no guarantees in music, but you're doing everything you can to set yourself up for success, to set yourself up so that your next release will be better. You're just constantly putting one foot in front of the other, and that's all you can do. Just keep things moving along.
And then also, is the person that did the task that they were allocated, was that the right person for that job? You might have done something on Facebook and realized that you're just not a tech-savvy person and you messed it up. You put the wrong ticket price, or you put the wrong address, or you did something incorrectly. Not really. I mean, you can't place fault, but it is your fault in some respect.
Yep.
But it might not be your fault that you were allocated that task.
Yeah, it might be mismanagement of people and their skills. Like you said, there could be someone in the band who doesn't have a personal Facebook page, and you've got them to run the band Facebook because you're like, hey man, you don't even run your own one. You've got time, run the band Facebook. Yeah. It's like, well, theoretically you could see where those dots are connected, but it's probably not the best use of that person.
Yep. And so, do you need to rearrange that? Is the tasks that you allocated to be done inside the band, was that the right choice as well? Next release, is it worth getting someone outside of the band to do that? Did you do your own cover art and it looks kind of basic and it didn't look attractive to the audience?
Yep.
Do you pay someone $50 or $100 to make a little bit better cover art than it was last time? Because that's how you really want to think about it. Just a little bit better each time. A little bit. Don't put your expectations up sky high. We're going to get the best guy. We're going to, pay $400, $1,000 for them to do our cover art for one single release.
Yep.
The mismanagement of these expectations as well can lead to you making poor choices when you're listing out the priority list as well.
Absolutely.
So really you want to aim for just small steps.
Yep.
Was it just a little bit better than last time?
Yep. And not only that, once you've got this document and you're reflecting on an actual tangible document, this isn't in your head reflecting, this is written down with actual information, you then can weigh up, hey man, cool, last release, we did all of this in-house, we've kept tallies, this is how much we spent, this is how many hours it took us. You're now in a very good position and a much more educated position to weigh up those sort of things. Like, hey man, is it worth me getting back all the time I spent on cover art, show poster art, to outsource that for $150 to a graphic designer? You can now weigh that up. You're not guessing. You can be like, yeah, man, 100%. I work full time. It would be much better for me to pay someone who's good at what they do, to pay them a couple $100 for them to alleviate all the mental stress and time that went into me trying to learn Photoshop, trying to get it right, like all of those things.
And I think we could probably talk about budgeting in another full episode, because it's something that's alongside planning and prioritizing things. Prioritizing and planning your budget is exactly what we're talking about, but it's another thing. Because these are actionable tasks, right? What we're talking about today in this episode is actionable tasks that lead you to getting better results next time you do them, the next time and the next time and the next time. We can talk about prioritizing and planning your budget in another episode, but it's worth thinking about now.
100%.
By doing that at the start, going, okay, how much money do we have? What's our overall budget? Where are we allocating the money? What's the most important thing?
Yep.
And I think we can talk about it in another episode, but just briefly, that's something to consider as well.
100%. And then now you've gone through that process. So you've gone from the very start to, all right, we've got a release coming up. Let's plan out everything that needs to be involved. Let's allocate that to people. Let's allocate how much time we think it's going to take. Let's put a budget next to it so we can actually see how much we're spending, so we're not just spending blindly, which is, what me and I'm sure many other bands did early on. You're giving your attention to the task that screams the loudest, and usually you're also giving your money and your budget to the task that's next in front of you. Yeah,
I've told you that story of me paying $700 to get our song on a CD that no one's going to listen to, a whole other bands that are at the same level of us that only their friends and family know. what a waste of money that was.
Oh,
And it seemed good at the
I had
time.
a Zoom with an artist just this morning who just went through that process, and he's super early in his career. He's only put out 2 or 3 tracks, so he's right at the very start. And he had a PR company that charged him this money, and they did absolutely nothing. Like, nothing in it. Not only that, but they took splits and ongoing splits
What?
from his music.
PR?
Yeah, I know. So
See you later.
there is traps out there, unfortunately. But again, putting these things, down on paper, talking with other people, going in and networking will help you alleviate some of these traps.
Sweet. And let's summarize, because I think we've covered all that we need to for today. So at the start, you need to have an understanding of what could go wrong, because that will lead you to making a better plan.
Yep.
When you're right at the start, you do have to plan everything out. Get micro, write every single thing that needs to be done. Video clips, photography, bio, Spotify, absolutely everything. Write every single job that needs to be done.
Even if in your head you're like, that'll take me 2 seconds, or update my picture on Spotify.
I could do that whenever. Yeah.
Put it down.
Write it down. Because in our heads, we think things are more important than they actually are, or that something is more important than something else, and we end up prioritizing things incorrectly and spending time on things that we probably shouldn't, which leads to a poorer outcome than what we could have gotten. And so, listed everything out. Figure out how much it's going to cost, figure out how long it's going to take, who needs to do it, do you need to outsource it, and then reflect.
Look back on your previous release, your previous priority lists. See, one, were they accurate? Were you close to the ballpark in anything? Was there anywhere where you were way off? And if there was, I'd suggest talking with other people about it. Find other bands who have done that, whether it's a video clip photography.
That did it successfully.
And chat with them. Be like, hey man, I spent this much and this, what did you guys do? Have those conversations with people. And then look forward and put together your next release plan, your next priority list. And hopefully it's a little bit tighter and a little bit cleaner.
Just little steps.
That's right. It's like mixing. When you're mixing, if there's any mix engineers listening here, you don't make huge, drastic improvements to the song. You're doing little bits that add up to a much
tiny
cleaner.
brush strokes.
Yep. And that's all we're doing.
Yep. Love it.
Awesome.
Nice, short, snappy one, I think, today.
Yeah, this is it. Episode 46, Prioritizing What's Important.
Yep.
As always, thank you very much for listening. If you found this information useful, make sure to subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening to it. And if you've got friends starting out in the music industry, share this with them. That's how we can get this information across.
Also, if you were listening to that and we were talking too fast, you're like, what the hell was going on there? And you want to know a little bit more about it, get in touch with us, get into our DMs, email us, contact@marshallstreetstudios.com. We do artist coaching and development courses that go into this sort of stuff in a lot more depth. So if you want to know more about that, please get in touch with us. We are here. We're always on Instagram. We're all over it. So get in touch. We'd love to chat to you. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time. Marshall Street Podcast.
Peace.